Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's parshas Power Up. Apologies, we missed the past couple of weeks. There was a share just not recorded. Um, this week's parshas is a double whammy. So it's actually in parshas Matos Maasei. It's definitely very jam packed. Um, Starting off with just the annulling of oaths, importance of keeping your oaths, and yeah, there's a lot. We're going to actually just focus on parshas Matos, and so like we said that. It starts off with the importance of keeping oaths. But right, if you make a word, you must keep your word. And if you read the parsha that says it, and it's in the chapter 30, verse number 3. So it says, Ish, it's the second sentence of the parsha. Ish ki yironer la Hashem v'yishav so nisan nafshoi lo yachal devaroi. A man who makes an oath and keeps to it, he does not make his word in vain, right, with nothingness. So then kechol hayotzim mipiv yaseh. Anything that comes out of his mouth, he will do. So the simple translation of that is anything that comes out of his mouth, he will do, means that he will keep to his word. But our rabbis teach us that kechol hayotzim mipiv yaseh is actually saying anything that comes out of his mouth, he, who's the he? Hashem. Hashem will do. So meaning to say, if a person is always very careful with his word, so then if it ever comes that a person says something, then Hashem will make sure that that will happen. That is just a very powerful idea that we must always keep in mind when keeping to our words. Anyways, moving right along, just in chapter 30, sentence number 13. So it says over there that a woman, if she makes a promise and then she breaks her word, but breaks her promise, but afterwards her husband actually annuls her word for her. So even though it means that her promise comes untangled, as if she never ever made a promise, however, the Torah still says that she needs to ask for forgiveness. And Rabbi Akiva, when he read this pasuk, he tremble because he says, if this is what happens to somebody who's not even over any avera, didn't do any avera, because at the end of the day, the husband made it that the promise was no longer. Right, so she wasn't over any promise because there was no promise there. He undid the promise. That if she needs to ask for forgiveness, how much more so somebody who actually did a sin? This is just a very powerful idea. It's another idea that I've heard from our Rebbe Rav Esrig, that he always used to say that these days we need to spend extra time, specific time, working on self-improvement. And in those days they didn't. Why is it in those days we don't see that they had Musa Seder? They didn't have special time in the day set aside for working on themselves. The answer he said is because when they would read the Torah and they'd read the words, it would penetrate their heart. That all of a sudden, wow, right? They were so in tune, they were so sensitive and so in tune with the Torah. When they read the Torah, like, what does this have to do with myself? And like, for example, over here, Rabbi Akiva just read a normal sentence, and all of a sudden, like, shook him up. As opposed to us, we don't. That doesn't happen to us. Therefore, it's important that we have set aside time in our day for self-improvement. Moving right along, chapter 31. The second sentence and the third sentence. So it says over there that Hashem told Moshe to take revenge against the Midyanim. The Midyanites, remember the Midyanites, they were the ones that got the Jews to sin. And it says over there that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, go take revenge from the Midyanim. It will be the revenge of the Jews. And Moshe turned back to Hashem. He's like, fun. Moshe turned back to the Jews and he said, look here, we need to go and take revenge from the Midianites. It will be the revenge of Hashem. So it's very like what happened over here. And is it the revenge of Hashem or is it the revenge of the Jews? Right? Hashem said, take revenge of the Jews. And Moshe told the Jews, look here, we need to go take the revenge of Hashem. What's happening over here? So the answer I've heard, Rashi already says, is that the only reason why the Midianim were out to get us is because we were the nation of Hashem. So Hashem was really Moshe Rabbeinu was telling Hashem actually, Hashem, you busy saying we must take revenge and the revenge of the Jews. But he says the only reason why they are attacking us is because we are Hashem's nation. And that's what they have against us. If we weren't Hashem's nation, then they wouldn't care about attacking the Jews. That's why Hashem was busy saying, that's why Moshe Rabbeinu was busy saying that it's the revenge of Hashem. It's just a powerful idea couple of powerful ideas. First of all, it's important for us to know, like when we daven to Hashem, especially during these times when there's so many people trying to kill us, it's important for us to, when we daven to Hashem, we can literally tell Hashem, Hashem, this is your war. If we were in your nation, they wouldn't think about attacking us. It's just always a powerful idea. But the other thing that's always good to keep the other thing that Rabbi Liapian says is that sometimes, unfortunately, there's somebody that's more religious than us. We start getting upset with them and start getting jealous with them, start wanting to do maybe even possibly bad things to them. And we must just remember, we have to be in touch with ourselves as to why we're feeling that. First of all, these feelings are never okay. But sometimes the real reason why we're feeling it is because we have something against Hashem, or we're feeling guilty about our religiousness, or it's just because, right, it's only because they're more religious, they've got more of a connection to Hashem, and that's why we're attacking them. And by doing this, then we really are attacking Hashem. Because if it wasn't that they were more religious, they weren't closer to Hashem, then we would never do such a thing. So it's only because they have a closer connection to Hashem that that we're attacking them. It's just a very powerful and scary idea. And my grandmother actually was the opposite. She, many times we're very accommodating to people that are less religious than us. Right? No, even if they keep less kosher, we're not going to we're going to make sure not to insult them. We're going to make sure whatever, and they can go around with it. But the second somebody more religious comes to us and wants to keep extra kosher on us, so then we start getting angry at them. My grandmother, when somebody would come to our house and they would keep extra kosher, like extra strict version of kosher, so my grandmother would make sure to get special meat for them. She would sometimes even bring, she lives in Houston, she would bring it in from New York and keep it in a freezer for such instances. Very powerful idea. I also remember once, I was a little bit less inspired, let's just say. There's a religious organization that was doing something that I was so upset about. It was just so extreme in my eyes. I just wanted to go and protest against them. And my father turned to me. He's like, how would you like it if they were to do it to you? And that was also the same kind of moment, just because they were more religious than me. That's why I was getting upset. Anyway, so at the end of this war with Midian, chapter 31, sentence 8, so it says that Bilam was killed with a sword. Who cares how he was killed? The main thing is Bilam's dead, 6 feet under. Who cares what the method was? So Rashi already comes to save us, like always. And Rashi says that it's because Bilam, how did Bilam try to attack the Jews? He used his mouth. In Parshas Balak, he tried to kill the Jews. He tried to curse the Jews with his mouth. And the mouth is actually the Jews' weapon. How so? Says Rashi, because the Jews always daven to Hashem. That's the way that we win wars, is through davening to Hashem. And so Bilam used his mouth to attack the Jews. So you know what happened? Hashem made sure that when he was killed, that he was killed with the sword, because the sword is the way of the non-Jews. The non-Jews just go with the sword. That's the way that they try to attack the Jews. It's with the sword, guns, etc., etc. As opposed to the Jews, they use their mouth. So it's kind of switched around. So therefore, Bilam, he tried to attack the Jews with the mouth. He actually ended up getting killed with the sword. That's not usually the Jewish weapon, but that's the way that Hashem made sure he was killed, because he switched his weaponry. It's just a very powerful idea that we must always remember, that our main weapon is our davening, is using our mouth. That is a very, very, very powerful idea. Anyways, at the end of parshas Matos, we're not going to get to parshas Maasei, just so much, is that the tribes of Reuven and Gad, they wanted to live just outside of Israel. They figured out that it was better for better pasture for their animals. And they came to Moshe and they said to Moshe, if you look at chapter 32, sentence 16, they said, look here, we're going to build cages for our animal and houses for our children. Right, again, cages for our animals, for our sheep, and houses for our children. Moshe replied to them, no, build houses for your children and cages for your sheep. So he switched the order, right? They said, we'll build cages for our sheep and houses for our children. And Moshe, when he replied, he said, build houses for your children and cages for your sheep. This is just such a powerful idea. Then Moshe, what's the reason why he switched it around? Was because he wanted to teach them the powerful idea of prioritizing. Person must always make sure that the priorities straight. First comes family, and then comes business. Business is never ever your top priority. And nobody ever regrets spending more time with their family. Right? Nobody ever regrets it. But they do spending too much time in their business. People, I've heard before, that's a lot of people, they spend all their time making sure that their kids will be well off and not have to worry, they'll be well off, and not have to worry about money. But in truth, they would be better off if their father was just with them, and they regret it at the end of their age, end of their life, that they, if only they spent more time with their family. Wishing everybody an amazing Shabbos.